Hi, Ben from the Sustainable Games Alliance here. Thanks for joining us for another demonstration of our Scope 3.1 or 3.2 purchase goods and services or capital goods standard for IT hardware. So let's talk through how the spreadsheet works. When you first open it up, we're here and you'll see a example data sheet. You'll see it completed with some dummy data in. If you end up getting lost or confused about how to use it, feel free to refer back to those. But it works just like every other data input sheet. Work from top to bottom, left to right, and fill in only the red shaded columns. When would you use the IT hardware data input sheet? Well, two possible situations. Number one, it's time to do your annual reporting or your mandatory disclosures, and you have a lot of purchased goods and services, purchased IT hardware, and you want a really quick and easy method to use. In this case, you want to use option 3, which is a spend-based method. You just put in the total amount of money that you've spent on IT hardware for each category, and it will produce a good enough estimate for the embodied emissions. Scenario 2 is when you have IT purchases that you're reasonably sure or you already have access to the product carbon footprint reports that supplier may have already produced. It might be when you've bought from Apple or Dell or other suppliers that produce carbon footprints. So how do we use those? Well, to illustrate, I've got some example data here. This is, I'm just imagining that we've bought 10 copies of iPhone 16s in a given year and 5 Dell Inspiron 16s. And I've already pulled out the product carbon footprint totals and the cost. And so let's just chuck those numbers in. So let's start with the iPhone 16s. They were 883 euros. We'll go down to the data input sheet, option 3. I'll select hardware type, mobile phones. Put in 883 euros, but we want 10 of them. So I'll just do a little bit of maths in the cell. And the currency, we select the currency as euro. So the spreadsheet there has done a number of things for us automatically. It has pulled out an exchange rate data for euros to USD and calculated a USD total. And then it's also converted that USD total into the appropriate year for the emissions factor that we have. So this is 2021, so it applies an inflation adjusted figure. Then there's our IT hardware emissions factor for this category of IT product. And we've now got a spend-based total, which just is the multiplication of that emissions factor and the amount of spend. So we can do the same thing as well for the laptop, which was 842 pounds this time. So we'll go, and there was 5 of them, so 5 times 842 pounds, and we'll say it is pound sterling. Again, same deal, we've got an exchange rate, a USD total, and an inflation adjusted figure, which then calculates the carbon emissions from it. So these are just estimates, but they're reasonable enough estimates. They're a pretty good average. And if you're in a rush, that will do. Those will be your numbers. Those can be your numbers. And so we've got a total here, which gets reported way back up at the top as your spend-based total. Now, let's just say though, instead of using the spend-based version, you want to dig into the product carbon footprint. You want a bit more control over your emissions, and you want a more accurate figure. Well, we've got carbon footprint reports for the Dell Inspiron here and the iPhone 16 here. And all we have to do is pull out that number and then remove the use phase amount, because we're assuming the use phase will be reported. Like, we just don't need to double count that. That will be reported in our Office Scope 2 figure. So I've pulled that number out. So let's go and plug that in to option 1. So IT device name, this was a iPhone 16, 256 gigabyte. It was manufactured by Apple. The category is tablet, smartphone. And our embodied greenhouse gas emissions number, this is supplied by Apple themselves, so it's the most accurate we can get, is that number there, 50.02 kilograms of CO2, and we bought 10 of them in our reporting year. And so you can see we've added up the total over here, and we can do the exact same with our Dell laptop. Just paste the values only. Dell, I'll say it's a laptop, and that's my product carbon footprint minus the use phase emission. So that's the electricity that it would use, because we're assuming that we're going to be counting that electricity that we use on our, on our own office utility bill. So we purchased 5 of them, and there we go. It's gone and added up the same as well. So now we have our IT hardware supplier embodied method total, and it's up here. Now, the one thing to be careful of is don't put the same purchases in different in different options, right? If you are using option 1 for a certain number of products, then you should remove them from option 3, and vice versa. Just otherwise we'll double count them. But that's as simple as it is. That's really all it takes to use the Scope 3.1 or 3.2 IT hardware data input sheet. We're really keen for people to try it out and use it. We'd love to hear what your results are and help you to reduce the impact of purchases in this part of the games industry.